Hello and welcome to Cycling Insights, your cycling podcast brought to you by L'Etape Australia by Tour de France. Before we start, don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or on your favourite podcast platform. Give us a follow and leave us a review. Let's dive into today's show. Hello and welcome to the second edition of our special podcast, Cycling Insights, presented by L'Etape Australia by Tour de France, as we meet and get to know the backstory of some of the leading women in world cycling. Today I get the opportunity to catch up with Jessica Allen, who is a young woman now 27 years of age that I first got to saw in action representing Australia at the Junior World Championships in 2011 in Denmark, where she started as one of the pre-race favourites in the individual time trial, and she won it by less than 2 seconds. I think it was 1.3 or 1.5 seconds. It was a brilliant performance. When I caught up with her, it was with a few days to go at the Giro d'Italia, and one of the riders that she started racing with, she was 9 when she was started, Jai Hindley, was 6 years of age. Jai, when Jessica and I spoke, he was sitting in third position overall in the Giro d'Italia. Since then, he finished in second position. And Jessica tells the story about that incredible club. And wait until you hear the list of some of the results from riders at that club that Jess started with. She now rides with the Mitchelton Scott team. She's one of the powerhouses on that squad as a super domestic. Here she is, Jessica Allen. Well, Jessica Allen, thanks for joining me. First of all, I want you to describe you as a bike rider, because I've got in my mind what you are, and it's an upbeat, positive, super domestique. But how do you describe yourself?
I do like to be upbeat and pretty positive. But I think I'd also like to describe myself as like quite a gritty and tough kind of rider. I think as I grew up in the sport, I was always riding with boys. And so I really learnt those characteristics from the start, just trying to keep up with the boys, trying to beat the boys. So I love a tough race. I love racing aggressive when I can as well. But most importantly, I love riding my butt off for my teammates.
How old were you when you started racing?
I was 9 when I started on the velodrome at Midland Speed Dome with Midland Cycle Club, and absolutely hated it. Like, I was so scared of the banking, and I think it took me about 6 months to actually ride above the black line, and then got into racing probably a year after that, just like local club racing.
So how does a 9-year-old end up down at the velodrome and in Perth with the banked velodrome? You know, it's intimidating as an adult with experience on the bike, let alone a 9-year-old.
Yeah, and particularly in Perth, that velodrome is the steepest track in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's bloody scary, and when you crash on it, it really hurts. But my dad was the one that actually...
Jess, I hate to break it to you, I have not met a velodrome yet where it doesn't hurt when you do crash.
And the splinters you get are just ridiculous. But my dad actually got me into it. So I think when I was about 6, I lived up north in Karratha. My dad got transferred up there as a police officer. So I did triathlons up there. And then once I came back to Perth when I was 9, he knew I was pretty strong on the bike. It took me out to Midland Speed Dome, and there was a lot of young kids then actually that were starting out track. So yeah, I met some friends there, and that's basically what kept me in the sport to start with, because I didn't really like it, but I liked being with my friends at the track on a Wednesday night, and then eventually ended up enjoying it.
That's the key to any sport. So I've got 2 young kids. I've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. And rule number 1 is have fun. And I figure if they're having fun and they're engaged, then the other stuff will come.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was for me. And then, got my first road bike and started doing club rides on the road with some youngsters as well. And then that's how I just fell in love with it.
What about that generation of riders that you came through with, though, in Western Australia, and particularly that club? Take us through some of the riders that you were racing with and against when you were 9, 10, 12, 15, etc.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable actually. So the club's called Midland Cycle Club, still a member of it now. And when I started, we had young Jai Hinley who was just starting, and Jai at the moment's coming third in the bloody Giro d'Italia, and he was 6 years old at the time. So there was little Jai who was six, me who was nine, and we're just riding around on the track, learning the gist of it. And then we also had the Maya brothers. People I really looked up to were them. There was Josie Tomic, Sarah Kent,
So
Michael
just back, hang on,
Freeman.
some ease up a little bit. So this is a club, right? So the riders
Yeah,
that you've mentioned so far, we've got currently third in the Giro d'Italia. Cameron Meyer, I've lost count of the amount of world titles that he's won on the track. I think it's eight. I honestly cannot remember. It might even be more than that. I could be selling him short. Both him and his brother have been Australian road champion. You mentioned Michael Freeberg. He's been an Australian road champion and he's won an Omnium World title on the track. You mentioned Josie Tomic and Sarah Kent. They've both won world titles on the track in the team's pursuit. And this is the club that you started racing with. Now, you'd think that you'd be able to make a start, win a couple of club races, and you'd be on your way. You go there and not win a club race and think, I'm not going to be any good. You had to be world class to win a club race.
yeah, it was actually such a cool atmosphere we had. On a Tuesday afternoon after school, we'd go to this place called Kings Park. We'd have like an hour and a half session there. And because you had such a range, you had like, the new kids, and then you had world class riders like the Maya brothers. We'd do handicap races. And and that was insane because you're essentially racing these guys, but yeah, you've got a handicap, and we'd all put in $2 at the start of the race, and then whoever won got all the coins at the end, and it was so much fun. And then Wednesday night was track, so we'd all see each other again then. And then Saturday and Sunday were Saturday was a pretty solid hills ride, and then Sunday was this like just your stock standard Sunday bunch ride, and it'd be about 30 k's, really easy, and you'd all stop at the end of the ride, have a big milkshake and muffin, and then ride home.
That's fair. How much does success breed success? Because one of my favourite people to interview about the story in cycling has been Matt Hayman. And he tells the story about the first club race that he rode. And he turned up and he saw this kid warming up. He looked like he was really well organised. He was doing laps. He was all ready to go. And Matt was intimidated, didn't want to go out and race. And he ended up racing against this kid and he finished second. And that kid was Michael Rogers. So between the two of them, Michael Rogers, finished top 10 at the Giro, top 10 at the Tour, won 3 world titles in the team in the individual time trial, and Matt Hayman won Paris-Roubaix. So pity the third kid that ever turned up to race against those two.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and particularly with our club racing, as I said before, we had like handicaps, and on the road you'd have it in grades, so you have like A grade, B grade, C grade. And so I think what motivated a lot of people was to actually get into the next grade and to like be with those top riders. So you do a road race and you have A grade chasing down B grade and C grade, and you just want to hang in there like when they come past and try follow Cam and Trav as long as you can, or Josie and Sarah. And it was, yeah, really inspirational, and watching them achieve so much when I was young was really eye-opening.
How encouraging were they, those slightly older athletes, for you as one of the youngsters?
Are super encouraging. Particularly being female, there weren't really many girls riding at that time. Particularly in my age, I just mainly rode with boys and Sarah and Josie and a few other girls. But whenever we had club racing and training, they'd always help you out. And some of my favorite events were called I think it was a Derny or a Derby, a Derny. So you have a front, like, so I was normally paired up with Cam Meyer, and it'd be a handicap race, but we'd have the senior riders pair up with what we called a little tacker, and and we'd race around the track, and that was some of the best memories for sure, as a junior.
You are the company you keep, and you picked your rider pretty well, Cam Meyer, on the track.
Yeah, they even taught us to do Madison slings and everything. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that would have been really cool. Did you do any other sports as a kid?
Yeah, I did quite a bit. So I was into triathlons to start with, and I was really looking up to people like Emma Snowsill and I actually wanted to be a professional triathlete. And then once I was on the track and doing so much road riding as well, my dad was kind of like, you've really got to pick a sport, because I was doing netball and cross country, swimming. Like, I just wanted a bit of everything. So I eventually just stuck to cycling and netball for a bit, and then gave up the netball. And so when I was probably like 14, 15, I fully committed to cycling.
What was your favourite position on the netball court?
Goal defense,
Oh, I
or
thought you were
centre.
going to say centre. Oh, I was
Yeah,
convinced you were going to say centre.
I'd flip between the two, centre and goal defense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all about centre. How much has that team spirit of a game like netball influenced you as an athlete now, as a cyclist?
Yeah, huge. Netball, even just, just other team sports at school, like little athletics, and everything. It really teaches you teamwork. And a lot of people think in cycling it's more of an individual sport, where it is in certain aspects, but like in a road race and yeah, mainly on the road, it's so much more of a team event. And that really taught me that from a young age. And I think that's why I do love supporting my teammates so much, because you just learn that all through netball. And you've got your parents there, your brothers and sisters watching you on a Saturday morning on the court, and there's so many people that make it a team.
Yeah, cycling is a team sport won by individuals. And I'm firmly of the view that the best domestics in cycling definitely benefit from having played team sports as juniors.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So when you made that decision to go full gas, okay, I'm going to pursue cycling, what were you dreaming about at that point?
Probably just the Olympics. As an Australian growing up, there's so much emphasis on the Olympics. Like whenever the Olympics is on, you're at school, you're learning all about the different sports, the athletes. Um, and when I was in primary school, I didn't really, and even high school, I didn't really know much about the world tour in Europe. I just knew there was a World Championships and Olympics and Com Games, and that was about it. Um, so as I started developing quite well as a junior, I was just starting to target the World Championships as a junior, because that was kind of the biggest event you could do. And then after that, I realized, man, like you can actually live overseas, and there's more races than just the Olympics and the World Championships, and like events like Flanders, and now we have a Paris Roubaix and the women's Giro. They're all such huge events that I think are just as good, as the Olympics.
Was the travel element a part of the appeal as well with cycling?
Absolutely. I hadn't even left Australia until I went to my first Junior World Championships, and even nationally, I hadn't really travelled that much around Australia either, until I was a cyclist. And it's hard actually, because it's an expensive sport when you're young. So my parents had to put in a lot of money to get me to national championships, and even my first
Particularly
national
from
championships.
WA.
Yeah, yeah. So as an under 15, I was really lucky that my first track nationals was in Perth. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gone. And we're like, oh, it's a home one, might as well give it a crack. And yeah, so it's
How did you go?
really well actually. I was third in the individual pursuit, and my mum, I don't even think she was there. She didn't realize how big it was. She was just at work, and Dad gave her a call and was like, "Oh, Jessica's made the final of the bronze medal. I think you should come down to the track and watch it." And she was like, "Oh shit!" And rushed to get there, and then I ended up winning the scratch race, which was yeah, bizarre. Did not expect
That's
that at all.
awesome. So
Yeah.
what about in 2011 when you rang mum and dad from Denmark to say, "Mum, Dad, I'm junior world time trial champion"?
Yeah, that was super special, and to this day, that's still such a special win for me. Yeah, it was a long way for my parents to come, so they were watching it on TV, and I had pretty high expectations of myself. I was actually the last rider to start based on the year before's results, so I knew I was in for a good shot, and I had such good support around me. I had Donna Race Lazinki in the car, as well as I think Marv was in the car as well, and and just won it by a bloody beasting.
What was the gap in the end? It was 1.2 seconds or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
1.5?
1.3. It was super close, super close. Yeah.
Yeah. Just on Donna Ray, she's somebody who I don't think gets enough credit for the role that she's played in Australian cycling, particularly supporting young women going through the juniors and into the senior ranks. How important was she to you in 2011?
Oh, super important. I don't actually think I would be over in Europe right now without her support. She coached me leading up to the World Championships in 2011, and then fully took over my program after that for a few years. And yeah, Donna, she's so strong. She's been through a lot herself. She's also been a professional, so she understands it, and is just a super coach. And yeah, it was for both her and I. That year was super special, and the years after that were also super special. I still now call her, and when I need advice, and when I'm down and need to be picked up a little bit, I can talk to her and be super open. And yeah, she probably my biggest idol actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved seeing you. I was lucky enough to be there in Denmark, and I can remember seeing you two afterwards and around that medal ceremony. And sadly, she lost her son earlier that year, and it was an incredible moment to see you and her together. And I imagine that she is the world's greatest sounding board. She might be a good coach physically. In fact, she might be a great coach physically, but she's the world's best sounding board.
Absolutely. Yeah, she knows what she's talking about, and yeah, she's just great fun to be around as well. She has a real calming presence as well, but can be super full on, and also a mum figure. So it's super nice, I think, for the young girls coming through to have someone like that, particularly when you're away from home. And she can really relate to that and help you out.
Yeah, I think she's absolutely awesome. And any opportunity we've got to praise Donna Ray, I reckon we should always take it, those of us in the cycling community. For you, then after that, winning a junior world title, there's huge expectations. How hard was it for you to make that transition then into the elite ranks?
It was bloody hard, actually. A lot harder than I thought because I was a super successful junior. And you do see a lot of successful juniors just kind of falling off once they make the senior ranks. And I got back from the Junior World Championships, and later that year, I actually did the AIS selection camp in Canberra, which is based on like an SAS Army camp, and got my head absolutely kicked in. And I don't know how many there was, maybe 15, 20 girls. And every few days you got cut and people were sent home. And I was in the first group that got sent home after like 3 days. And I was like,
Oh,
oh
ouch.
man, yeah. Martin Barras, like he knew I had potential, but at that point in time, I was, I think, just pretty cooked from the year, and also like it's such a huge step up. And for junior women, there's no under 23 categories. You're straight from under 19s into elite women, and that was a bit of a shock to the system. Um, but I was lucky enough to have a pretty good summer, and I picked up the Amy Gillett Foundation scholarship, and that got me a ticket to Europe with the Australian development team. And once I got there, like I knew Europe was my bread and butter. I had never raced other than the World Championships and a couple of races in Italy before that. But my first race there was in Holland. It's called the Energy Watt Tour, and it's just dead flat, windy racing. And yeah, I was Gracie Elvin was in that team as well, and I just remember us just like just never even knew what an echelon was, what gutter action was, and straight into the thick of it, and I loved it. And I think that really helped me to be the rider I am today. That's for sure.
Is that riding position, that sort of that battle for position, that's the sort of thing that's obviously, it sounds like just by the tone of your voice, you've got a spring in your step when you talk about it that you pride yourself on. But does that also go back to those junior days and the one girl there racing against the boys and taking everybody on, the elbows out, okay, come on, let's go.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. Yeah, I was always training with boys, and even in Perth, the group rides we have, you can do fast bunch rides probably 5 days a week in Perth. Um, and they're like the best guys racing. You've got masters guys that are just they could almost be pros. and and there'll be like maybe one or two women on these rides. And so from about 16, I was doing these bunch rides, and they're pretty much like a world tour race. Even now, when I go back home, like I don't go on the bunch rides unless I'm fit because I know I won't get around. And even if I do get to the finish, like I know I'm in good form if I can finish off a bunch ride in Perth.
The elite men say the same as well. Is it? What's the most famous one? The puppers? Is it the puppers ride?
Yeah, puppers. So Boxing Day puppers. I've actually never done it because seriously, every man and their dog rocks up to that ride. There's like about 300-400 people on the start line, and yeah, it's too close to nationals and all the summer racing, so I avoid that one. But yeah, like every Sunday morning, there's just a ride called the puppers ride, and they're just full gas. Like it's just a race from start to finish. It's pretty good fun.
Now, when you are in the peloton and you're racing with the Mitchelton Scott team, actually take us back to when you landed that first contract and you did. Okay, it took a little while to get there, perhaps maybe longer than what you anticipated, and you're going, okay, junior world champion, I've now confirmed, I've made it into a world tour team.
Yeah, it was a pretty special moment actually, because probably 6 months before that I was thinking of hanging the bike up. I'd raced for a professional French team, Bien Futurescope, in 2013. Didn't really enjoy my time over in Europe. And then, yeah, leading into 2016, I just really knuckled down over the summer. I was like, I'm going to give this one more crack. Um, and was lucky enough to get over to Europe in the development team with Australia again, and had some good performances. And it was actually, I was signed halfway through the 2016 season. At the time, the team was called Orica Green Edge, and they needed a couple of new riders. And so I went over in the spring, did the stint with the Australian development team. And then I went home back to Perth. I actually went to Bali on a 10-day yoga retreat. Um, and I think like a day or two after I got back from Bali, I had a call from Marv saying, "Hey, do you want to sign for the team? You need to be back in Europe at the end of the month." And I'm like, no way.
Yoga's not the best. Yoga's great, right? But it's 10 days of yoga is not the best preparation for world-class cycling.
I think it was actually like yoga has actually helped me so much throughout my cycling career.
Still do it?
Still do it, yeah. And particularly that yoga retreat I did was just what I needed, because after the spring in Europe, it's super stressful racing, and you're physically but more so mentally just cooked. So to get over to Bali into the mountains and just disconnect for 10 days was actually probably just what the doctor ordered.
Perfect. Brilliant. So then what was it like for you coming into that team and you had, somebody like Amanda Spratt, who's a well-established star by that stage?
Yeah, it was pretty special. I knew a few of the girls, but I didn't know them super well. But Spratty's someone I've definitely always looked up to since I've been racing in Europe, and she's such a humble person on and off the bike. And yeah, super accepting, and I just gelled with everyone in the team really well. And now they're all such good friends of mine.
What about riding for Annemiek van Vleuten? Because I would be nervous if I'm a support rider for Annemiek and I'm listening to her pre-race interviews. And I'll give you a little taste of what the interviews are when I interview her before a race. Her general theme is we're going to start really hard, we'll go super hard in the middle, and then we'll go full gas at the finish.
Yeah, there's some races, and the night before the race, you're getting the team plan, and it's like, okay, so Vlu's gonna go full gas from the bottom of this climb, and I'm just thinking, far out, man. Okay, like I need to make sure I get to the finish. Like in races like the Giro, for instance, like there was a hill time trial in the Giro 2 years ago, and it was 15 k's just uphill. And she knew exactly what time she was going to do, and I'm working out what power I need to do to get time cut. And so I had to pretty much go full gas, and I finished like over 10 minutes behind her and just made time cut. It's just like insane. She's incredible. But such a bloody tough rider. I don't know how she just keeps bouncing back the way she does. It's a credit to her, but far out, she is tough, and it's
I don't
really
know if
cool.
I don't know if there's a tougher athlete on the planet.
Yeah, yeah. And especially her whole career as well, like she didn't come into cycling as a superstar, and she came into it a lot later than most. And to see where she is now, it's amazing, and shows that, if you do want it enough, you can get to the top like she
She
has.
she inspiring.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Think just how driven she is, and yeah, it's amazing. I've never met an athlete probably as driven as her. Everyone's driven, but like cycling is everything for Annemiek. Um,
Mm.
and yeah.
So for you, when you're playing that role of a domestique and your job is done sometimes halfway through a race, and then you're just getting through to the finish line, you're tuning into race radio, and you hear Annemiek van Vleuten has won, or Amanda Spratt has won, or Grace Brown has won, what does that do to you? What's your emotional reaction?
That's awesome. Yeah, you actually get pretty emotional. Like I tear up sometimes, and particularly last year at the World Championships, seeing Spratty, like she didn't win the race, but she was on the podium, and that was huge. And it was huge for her. It was huge for us, and just like I rode to the finish circuit, was totally out of the race, and just seeing her come past, and man, I get goosebumps now thinking about it. And it's just so special seeing that, when any one of your teammates wins, and particularly when you've done a good job, um, you feel really proud, and something that, yeah, I always feel really good about.
It looks like you could have almost broken Spratty, actually, when she went across the finish line there at the World Championships last year. It looked like you'd all played rugby as juniors and put her in the big bear tackle. It was dangerous.
Yeah, she's only a little fella as well, so.
It was a really nice moment, and that actually highlights that sometimes we get too focused on who's won, and then second is actually the first loser. When that is complete garbage, if you've put in your very best performance, that is a great success. And she won a bronze medal and a silver medal at the past couple of World Championships, and her performances have been outstanding. In fact, she's one of my daughter's heroes. She's got Rafa Nadal and Amanda Spratt. And the reason she chose Amanda Spratt was when she finished second at the national championships behind Katrin Garfoot, which caught me by surprise with my daughter, who was, I think she was 6 at the time. And she said she keeps getting dropped, but she doesn't give up. She keeps coming back. I want to be Amanda Spratt. So she didn't pick the person who won it. She picked the woman who finished second, and that was Spratty.
Yeah, and there's sometimes some of the best stories actually. The people that, yeah, just keep fighting, and they might not necessarily win, but they're up there. And particularly like at the moment, for instance, Sarah Roy, like she's so close to getting a big breakthrough win, and she's super frustrated, but it's, she's up there, she's knocking at the door, and when she gets that big win, it will be so special. And it's just something, you just got to keep pushing for, and learn from the mistakes, and yeah, just keep trying again.
What about your own personal ambitions?
Yeah, well, I love the classics, so that's something I would like to have a good crack at down the track. This year hasn't been the best year for me. I feel like I haven't really stepped up as much as I wanted to. It's been a difficult year, but yeah, personally pretty disappointed. So the next couple of years, just want to keep improving, and I still love working for the girls, and being the domestique I am, but I also want to try and get further into the races, and do the job, towards more the pointy end as well. So I just got to keep getting stronger, but yeah, ideally I'd love to be up there in the mix in those classics races.
And you're 27 years of age, right?
Yep.
So this is a long way down the track. But what about life after professional cycling?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that. I do love living in Europe. I'm also working for a coaching company called Dig Deep Coaching. It's in the UK. So I've been working as a cycling coach for probably the last 6 years, and just have athletes that I just train online. And so I'm not sure exactly what I want to do with that. I do prefer coaching like one-on-one and in group environments where it's hands-on than just behind the screen. So whether that's back in Perth, running maybe like a cycling center or yeah, something like that. But I also love traveling as well. So even bike touring or something in that industry, I think would be pretty cool. So just keeping options open there.
As the old cliche goes, if you're doing something you love, then you're never going to work a day in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely know I couldn't work an office job 9 till 5. So something, yeah, outdoors and in sport for sure.
It could be a job for you behind the microphone. I remember when you came up on stage with me at the National Championships in Ballarat with the Criterium, I basically just said, Jess, the mic's yours, and you called the racing.
Yeah, I do enjoy that as well. I got to remember people's names a bit more. My memory's not that great, so that's something I'll have to
Don't,
do a
don't
bit
worry about the
better.
detail. Don't worry about the leave that to the other commentator. You just focus on the colour.
That's it. Yeah, but it is great. Even now, there's a lot more female commentators and stuff as well. So it's definitely an option there.
Yeah, Jess, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm hoping that you get that dream over the next couple of years and you continue to step it up. And I'm glad to hear that you won't be lost to cycling when the professional career stops.
Yeah, that's it. It'll always be in my life. I love it too much to stop. That's for sure.
That was Jessica Allen. I hope you enjoyed listening to what she had to say about her journey into cycling and the progress that she's been making over the past few years. When you look over the results sheet for Jessica Allen, it doesn't really tell the full story as to the contribution that she's made to the sport. Not yet, anyway, because a lot of what she's done has been to help others win, like Annemiek van Vleuten, the world time trial champion, world road race champion in the past, and Amanda Spratt, who's been a medalist at the World Championships. Jessica is also somebody that when I've had the opportunity to get her to join me on the microphone at the National Championships, which I did do a few years ago in the Criterium, a title in which she has won on one occasion. She has been the Australian Criterium champion. She was an absolute pleasure to work with, and she's got plenty to give in cycling after she finishes racing. Please tell your friends all about the podcast. Recommend that they have a listen to the story of Jessica Allen on whatever the platform is that you choose to listen to. And please subscribe. And hopefully, I'll see you in Kiama for L'Etape Australia by Tour de France. Thanks for listening to Cycling Insights, brought to you by L'Etape Australia by Tour de France. To learn more about the event or to register, visit letapeaustralia.com. It's LETAPE Australia.com. letapeaustralia.com. We'll see you on the road.